So this is a video I made to show you how I'm able to grow fruit trees in a small space, my small courtyard, using the giant concrete planters I made in another video. All my trees, except for one, are dwarf trees, which I figured would be beneficial in a small space. The bowl on the table contains the mulberries I'm picking, my dwarf mulberry tree. For a few weeks now I've been getting a bowl full to 500 grams worth of fruit off of the tree every day. It's the most productive of all the trees. Making the large planters has really allowed these trees to flourish. The previous pots were just too small and they were getting root bound. With these trees, I just put regular kitchen compost into the soil to keep the nutrients up and hit them with sea salt and some fertilizer in spring. Here's my kitty cat. Bowie getting his morning sun. Likes to roll around on the warm pavers. One of the rare times he'll let you pat him. So this first tree is my dwarf fig. I have gotten fruit off of it before, but I moved it last year to this spot. So the shock of that meant I didn't get fruit last year. I'm hoping the little bumps on the new growth will turn into figs this year. It should fruit. I mean, it's taking off with growth, so surely some fruit is next. This one is my dwarf mulberry tree. It fruits right on the start of spring, earlier than others around. I think that's because it's a sunny spot there. I thought I might keep it trimmed in height and width, but I've let it go because I liked it, and well, this is the most fruit I've ever gotten off it. So I think I'll trim it before winter and then let it go and trim it again after its first fruiting, which then causes it to fruit again, then trim it after its second fruiting, and I end up getting a third fruiting. So from spring to autumn, I'm getting some fruit off of this tree. This is my dwarf Eureka lemon tree. It's only been in this planter for a few months. It's already got some lemons on it. I don't like that the leaves are yellowing though and curling up a bit. I've given it fertilizer and an iron treatment, but I think it's just because we've had so much rain. It's a little waterlogged. Hopefully as it grows in size, the roots will suck up more of that water in the soil. So this one's not a dwarf. It's just an olive tree, I think, or a Europea or something. It hasn't fruited as yet, which is curious because two other dwarf olive trees I've given some fruit. I'm thinking maybe this one wasn't grown from a cutting, so it might take a few more years before I actually get fruit, or it's so sunny there in winter that it doesn't get cold enough for it. This is just a thornless blackberry bush that was over the fence I just cut out. And I'm using this bit of soil here to grow some carrots and beetroots. And while Pussycat's letting me pat him, I'll get as many as I can. This is my dwarf cherry tree. It's a low chill cherry, a royal crimson of some sort. And by that it means it doesn't need as many cold hours through winter to get fruit set. So I think this one only needs 200, whereas some need 700. Still no fruit off of it yet. I think it was in too sunny a position through winter, and I've only just moved it to where it is. On the left here, I've got my bits and pieces, some lemongrass, random eucalyptum growing, cuttings, mulberry cuttings, This is cutting from the thornless blackberry bush, and this is Panama passion fruit that something has eaten to bits, but I'll see if I can get that going again. And just basil, coriander, herbs and things, garlic, onions I grow in that little spot there, lettuces. Heading out in front of my fence is the common garden that we maintain ourselves. This here is a lillipilly I grew from a seed from a lillipilly hedge I used to have in front of my fence. This one here is an Mak'n smithi. I find it's more resistant to pests than the other lillipilly I just showed you. Now, most of the plants here are native except for a couple of kafirs and the strawberry plant I've got trying to get going there. And I've got some more trees in front of my fence. I've got 2 mulberry trees that I grew from cuttings, and that's only been there for 1 year, and I've cut it back to what it is already. This is my dwarf olive. It's flowered and it's got lots of budding little olives on it already, so that's great. In the spaces between the pots, I can grow vegetables. I usually grow either a tomato or carrots. This one here is a midgeonberry, so that's a native that gives a little fruit. I've got 4 or 5 of them and they're doing well. No fruit as yet. I'm not quite sure why. I think it might be an issue with bees. But they're putting on a good amount of foliage. So I'm not sure. Hopefully this year. This is my other dwarf olive, also full of little olives. So that's great. I did intend to cut the bottom out of these pots I've got them in, but I haven't as yet because they're growing quite well as they are. And they, in a couple of places, they did already throw some roots out through the holes in the bottom. So maybe I don't have to. This is my other mulberry cutting that I've got going here. Yeah, I suppose when I've finally decided that I'm not going to move those trees again, I'll cut out the bottoms and let them root into the ground a bit. And that's my other midgeonberry. All the flowers, this one's that you see here, the white ones, they're called the seaside daisy, and they're very hardy. They don't need any water and they just propagate like crazy. This is a native tea tree, Leptospermum ballerina. It's always full of pink flowers. It goes crazy. And the other flowers, the various purple ones, are just various Swan River daisies. So as I was filming there, my little resident heron tree frog decided to sing for a little bit. He does that randomly throughout the day. He's taken up residence in that pipe there that you used to put the sliding screen into. So I can no longer use it because he lives there. He's been good because he's cleaned up all the slugs and snails that were crawling all over my pavers. And this is him the other day. He managed to get into my house and hide in a stationery caddy in my desk in my bedroom. My son and I could hear him croaking from the bedroom really loudly. As I boiled the jug, it seemed to set him off singing. But we looked everywhere for him and we couldn't find him. In the end, I had an idea to just play a parent tree frog singing off of a YouTube video to see if he would respond to that. And sure enough, it worked. When the recording was playing, he just croaked and sang a little bit, and I was able to hone in on where he was and then put him back outside. So that's him happy back outside in his pipe. I don't know why he came in the first place. Whether it was actually the same frog, maybe a different one. So the rest of the video is just some still photos of various things around my garden. The little tree frog there, and mostly my cat, who absolutely loves being outside, laying on my flowers. I just want to make a few points. I mentioned that I had lillipilli trees in the garden before. Now, well, they were great that you'd get a nice cherry you could eat. They made a great hedge. But you would get this problem with these green little lillipilli beetles eating all the leaves. And they were really just voracious, destroying the trees. I found some neem oil helped with that. We had to spray so constantly that in the end it was easier just to take them out. I did have a couple of lillipillies left that I put in pots, and there are an Mak'n smithi. They don't seem to suffer as much from the lillipilli beetle um, or any other pests like psyllids that get on the lillipillies. Psyllids used to be the other major problem I had with my lillipilli trees. Um, you would get these insect suckers on the leaves that would cause pitting in the leaves, and they'd leave a sugary residue. And what would happen then is that sugary residue would sort of turn into mold, sooty mold. It was this black, moldy type substance on the leaves, and that would do damage to your trees as well. Um, you had to spray facilities to try and address that problem, but like with spraying the neem oil, it was just you had to do it so frequently that I got tired of doing it, and I didn't like spraying anything in my garden. I try and keep it organic, even though neem oil seemed okay. I don't remember what I was using for the psyllids. You could make a garlic oil type of spray which worked, but again, they were just so voracious. It took up a lot of time. Okay, so trying to explain this next bit is going to be harder for me because it involves more abstract concepts, and my brain tends to struggle a little bit with that. I'm off scripts, but I'll give it a go. So, as I was learning about psyllids and sooty mold, lily-pilly beetles, I came across the story of the Australian noisy myna bird and how its flourishing populations are affecting other native birds and also our native vegetation. So these are very boisterous and aggressive birds. They attack and bully every other bird around the area. And apparently, the changes to our urban environment in terms of the trees and vegetation we plant has allowed them to flourish as we've taken away the shrubbery that used to allow smaller birds to hide away from these minor birds and be safe. So, with the more open areas, these minor birds can chase and attack any other bird, native or not, and they tend to just either bully them or kill them. I've seen them chasing crows, just any bird, but they also have a go at me when they want to get into my trees and eat the insects, and I'm in the garden. They'll just crowd around me and squawk at me, trying to scare me off. And they absolutely chase and swoop and give my cat hell, but they're completely fearless. And the consequence of them killing and chasing out of areas, smaller and diverse bird populations, is that they've chased away the birds that will eat psyllids. And this has had a flow on effect that we're seeing a lot of sooty mold and dying back of native vegetation because we've changed this balance in the ecosystem. So I notice it happening where I live. The strata love their English gardens, and the only birds that exist around here are the minor birds. We get some rosellas that come in to eat the sap, and some lorikeets, but the minor birds find them and attack them straight away. So yeah, they're really having a hard time out there. So I talked to the strata and told them about this. There's an article about it here. And I made the case that we needed to put in more native shrubbery in our common gardens to see if we could do something to redress this issue. I don't think they quite understand what I was talking about, but as luck would have it, a couple of the natives that I put in, they really liked the flowers on them, so they bought some more of them and filled up the front garden with these shrubs. And so, in a roundabout way, I've kind of got what I've wanted in that we've got a nice native shrub garden at the front now. Whether that will spread and give them the idea to put more natives in all the other common gardens, I don't know, but I'll keep making the case and being a bit of a thorn in their side. A nature expert told me that birds like you see here, the fairy wren, need about 400 metres of understory, that's your lower level shrubbery, to be able to hide in from the minor birds. And across from me, where I live, there's the old rail corridor that they've let grow over, and it's now forming a bit of a nature corridor. And you'll see these little fairy wrens in there every time you walk, hiding in the blackberry bushes and all the shrubs. So they're thriving there, and there's all these other little small birds in the nature corridor as well. So it can be done. Um, I just think if we want to do it here in our strata property, we'll have to really make a serious effort. It's quite frustrating talking to the some of the strata that are really obsessed with the gardens. They're all baby boomers or older, fair bit older, and they just don't seem to think about these sort of things I'm mentioning here. And it gets me curious about what kind of education they had back in their day, or what kind of information they're looking at now. I assumed they would all watch the ABC, which puts some programs about this kind of information out there often enough. But yeah, other than wanting their ornamentals in English gardens, they don't really think about Australia's native plants or animals and how what we're doing has changed the balance in the urban areas and what we could do to maybe try and rectify that. It could also be an age thing where maybe they're just not used to taking on board anything that the younger people say. Um, and I also think it's, my generation, especially my son's generation, finding information is just so much easier for us. And I just spend a lot of time watching or I used to watching documentaries and reading anything that was interesting on the internet. Um, so I suppose that gives me a bit of a head start. But anyway, we'll see how we go making something happen there. I thought this was also interesting. This is the bell miner bird, which is causing similar problems to the noisy miner. This bird uses psyllids as a food source, but it doesn't eat the actual psyllid. It protects the psyllid from other birds that would eat it and just eats the sugary secretion that the psyllid produces. So it's actually having a flow-on effect of allowing psyllids to further proliferate through the environment, and it's causing the problems of dieback in a lot of our eucalypts and other vegetation. This article hypothesizes that removing uh, an invasive weed called lantana could play a part in reducing the habitat that the bell miner needs to flourish. So we'll see what happens with that. It's just interesting, but also kind of sad when we alter ecosystems so dramatically and cause consequences as we do. But it can be rectified. I remember looking at a case study here in Lake Macquarie, how the lake had gotten so dirty from stormwater runoff, and how the government had installed a lot of stormwater quality improvement devices, just basically a filtering system that the stormwater would run through before it finally hit the lake. And that has helped, but of course, our population is just so dense and growing that a perfect solution hasn't really presented itself as yet, but it's something we've got to keep trying to do. This here is a blue-banded bee, a native bee. I find him in my garden. He especially loves it when I plant catnip. And when I don't plant catnip, I don't see him. So he loves the catnip flowers. I was watching him one day. They move very fast. Managed to get a photo of him. Then I watched him go into a hole in the ground. I was like, oh, I didn't know they lived in the ground. They like to live in little burrows. But I'm hoping him turning up will be a solution to the loss of some of the European bees due to the variola virus that's hit here. And these are some other little native bees I see in my yard. They're very tiny. They're smaller than a fly. And these ones love rocket lettuce flowers. When I don't have rocket lettuce flowers, I don't see them. But they'll also turn up for passion fruit flowers. They absolutely love them. So yeah, seeing less European bees around over the last couple of years since we had that a variola mite, not a virus, um, turn up in Australia. Whether the reduction in European bees will allow the native bees to flourish or proliferate more, guess we'll wait and see. So there's a tour of my courtyard fruit trees and half of a lecture as well that made its way in there. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.